And welcome to the premiere episode of the Pajamas Movie Review. My name is Steve.
Sarah.
And we are here to give our review of Wonder Woman. And before we get started into Wonder Woman, we'll just let you know how we felt about the previous DC films. Starting with Man of Steel. Wasn't too big of a fan. That was actually our expiration date of our movie. We were supposed to break up after that movie. It didn't go along. 4 years later, we ended up getting married somehow. But just recently, last year, Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad continuing on the DC universe. And Batman v Superman, I do feel, is one of the biggest letdowns in movie cinema history. And I don't believe that's an understatement. And Suicide Squad, I thought was going to turn DC around. That did not work out. So, and Sarah, what did you think of the prior DC films, besides Superman being your hall pass?
Well, yes, Henry Cavill is my hall pass.
That is true.
Let's just state that for the record. Man of Steel, cinematography, absolutely beautiful. It was a gorgeous movie. However, it was very, very choppy. There wasn't really one cohesive thought. And that really translated into Batman v Superman and their whole idea of how to put, I guess, 6 movies into one and call it great.
There was a Batman origin movie, a sequel to Man of Steel, and a prequel to Justice League, all in one movie. Plus, you had to get Batman v Superman. It was a clusterfuck. So that brings us now to Wonder Woman. We'll let you know, is it the savior of the DC universe, or is the DC universe never going to be saved? At the start, we're not going to give spoilers. We'll give the spoilers towards the second half of our review. So what was your original thoughts after seeing the movie Wonder Woman? What did you think?
I thought that they did actually a pretty good job of storytelling. I think the first thing that I said to you when the credits started rolling was, oh my gosh, DC learned how to tell a story. A coherent, cohesive story. From giving, a little bit of an origin story for Diana, who is Wonder Woman, a little insight into her childhood and an insight into how the character even developed. It definitely did a good job of piecing all of those different stories together. Even the entrance of Chris Pine's character, which I thought he did an actually amazing job with. I no longer see him as just Captain Kirk. No, he actually is his role was actually pretty brilliant. I thought Gal Gadot actually did a really, really good job as well.
As Wonder Woman?
As Wonder Woman, yes. I was a little skeptical when they first cast her, but
going from Fast and Furious 6 to Wonder Woman?
Surprised. Oh, God, yeah.
Which I liked her in the Fast and Furious.
She didn't really have much of a role though, so there wasn't much to go off of.
She had enough of a role. It was good enough.
And no, I thought she portrayed that character actually very, very well. There were moments where you could see her vulnerabilities, and then there were moments of rage. The moments of rage were a little overacted, I would want to say, but as far as her portrayal of just a complete badass, it was very, very well done.
Wonder Woman is a fucking badass in this movie. And I really enjoyed it, surprisingly. I don't know, it's because if I went in with such low expectations, but taking a step back and just looking at it as a movie, if I didn't see Batman v Superman, Man of Steel, or Suicide Squad, just took it as a movie in itself, I really enjoyed it. I was very impressed. I can see how some would think her acting was a little inconsistent, but I think that was actually with her character, which I actually love the themes that they had. Someone who's actually sees everything in black and white, especially with war, the meaning of war, where generals should be fighting the war instead of being in the background, letting everyone else fight their fight for them. I really enjoyed those dark themes that they did have about war and how she felt about it. And even Chris Pine, I thought he did an excellent job. I thought it was kind of weird when I first heard that he was being casted, but I thought he did a great job. And I love the comedy with them, even towards the beginning, that he's above average.
Yeah, those themes were well broken up by some pretty witty adult humor.
Because some might think the other DC movies were too serious
Yeah.
of films, too dark and too serious, but I think it made that balance between the two. What did you think of the entire story? So it was about 2 hours and 20 minutes, a little over.
And it did feel like it was a little bit long, but when you really got into the film, it made sense, and it was still very enjoyable to watch. What was the question again?
I don't listen to me either. It's okay. No, yeah, this is marriage. Yeah, exactly. With the two kids wrestling around. No, just when I saw the time, 2 hours and 20 minutes, I just hope it wasn't overly stuffed. But I think all the first act was in her.
The pacing was actually done pretty well, because I know that one of my biggest gripes about the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which I don't even really want to get into that much, was that they could have probably cut out about 15-20 minutes in the center where it was just kind of like, all right, you've gone on long enough with this story about his dad, and it became a little too overdeveloped, whereas this one I feel like it was pretty well developed, with a few surprises as well. So that was actually pleasantly surprising.
And the characters, so Chris Pine plays a character called Steve, and he had his other friends join them, and they had that character development throughout the movie that we actually cared about the characters and the secondary characters who were actually helping them fight and Wonder Woman trying to end the war.
Yeah, and appropriately put, there were only about six real main characters that they had to develop, which was great, because unfortunately with Suicide Squad having so many main characters and then their side players, developing that was an impossible feat, to just be outright and honest. So this
without
one,
making it a 3-hour movie,
right? Exactly. And then this one actually was very, very well done. I enjoyed his friends. I enjoyed the introduction of his friends as well. That was
which I had to pee. I missed it.
No, one of them. It's funny. He talks about wanting to be an actor, but unfortunately, with the way that he looks, that was an impossibility. So he had to switch to a character in war, and unfortunate enough, because this is in World War I times, it was fitting for the movie. It was fitting for the character, and it was very fitting for the time. So.
And the action scenes, holy shit.
There were a lot of them.
It was impressively done.
A lot of the complaints that I've seen are on the final action scene. However, like after all of the different action sequences, I mean, it starts right from the very get-go. When they pan to when all the Amazons are training, I mean, you start to see her very characteristic, kind of matrixy, defying gravity type moves, which are absolutely brilliant. But it only gets better, like, as she kind of takes those on and as she develops her own fighting style, and that's the great thing about it too, is that you get to see that progression of her. She doesn't just come out the gate a badass. There are plenty of moments where where she stumbles and where she fails and where she's kind of just learning, and so we as the audience get to learn along with her and get to develop and get to really care about her.
Henry, motivations, what motivates her to want to fight the war. I was actually quite impressed of how they incorporated Zeus and Ares into the storyline and actually made it have a realistic feel to the story and Wonder Woman's motivations of partaking in the war and to end the war of all wars. I loved the first two acts. If the third act, that last battle, we'll get into more specifics and spoilers at the end of the video. But right now with that last battle, to me it looked a little out of place.
Yeah. With
the rest of the tone and look of the movie, but I understand with these kind of themes, and we're not giving any spoilers, type of themes that they have throughout the movie. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it.
Yeah, I also almost feel like it was because everything else was so well developed and well carried out that it almost seemed a bit rushed. However, if they would have done it any longer, or, I mean, I honestly don't even know how they could have done it differently where we wouldn't be complaining the opposite. So I think it's just, it was how it had to end, and because, so it was an unfortunate, battle that they had to deal with, but they so brilliantly led up to it. It's that whole conundrum right there.
It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
It makes sense of what they're trying to do and how to end the movie. And again, her motivations throughout the entire movie. But the action sequence and what you were talking about when she was being trained, they're showing it, is I am actually not a big fan of origin movies. Because it takes too long, such as Batman Begins, Iron Man, Spider-Man. It's always more than halfway through the movie is when they start getting in their suits, start kicking ass. I'm like, all right, that's a tease. X-Men, the first X-Men, they don't really do anything until the last battle together. So I've never been a big fan of origin movies, but I loved how they actually showed it at the beginning of her training. Because Batman Begins, they showed the training, but it was more towards in the middle of the movie. But they wanted to develop that Bruce Wayne character of how he got there. And this is actually one of my favorite origin movies, I would have to say.
Agreed. Yeah, actually, when I was watching the very beginning of it and just seeing like how much of an origin they were really going for, I was actually a little concerned on whether or not they could pull this off without, certain areas feeling rushed or just, tying it in like coherently as, a seamless film. But they actually did it pretty well and kept the attention of the audience, and for the most part it was pretty well done in that manner.
And how they did the battle scene of the no man's land in the middle of the war, that battle scene was incredible. It was fantastic how they shot it, how she fights, and not making it too unrealistic, even though she is a goddess, Wonder Woman.
But they also included some very iconic images in that, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. Like especially when she is shielding off all the firepower coming at them, and just like the whole idea where from the very beginning she always was kind of the people's warrior, and she stuck through that, from start to finish, and that really did motivate every single one of her decisions throughout the movie. And she even blames Chris Pine's character, Steven, on it. On unfortunate casualties of war. But that all led up to her.
And everyone had different motivations and reasons to want to fight.
Right.
And they expanded upon that with the characters. And
right, as in that's the actual theme of war, is that not just, a god who is telling man that he should be selfish is going to make every man be the same caliber of selfish. Everyone fights for their own reasons. That's
not just one person.
Right, and that was a wonderfully done theme in the movie, for sure.
And the look of Wonder Woman. What do you think of the look?
I loved it.
She was hot.
There were times when you could definitely see some ass cheeks, but tastefully so.
Oh, tasteful ass cheeks. You heard it here. Tasteful ass cheeks.
If that's appropriate.
You have very tasteful ass cheeks, yes.
No, it was very well done. I have to say, I actually enjoyed her look a lot. Can't say the same about Power Rangers.
Power Rangers? What are you talking about?
I didn't even see the movie.
Yeah, I didn't even see Power Rangers. Already talking shit.
And I was like, oh.
Can't talk shit about my Power Rangers.
Yeah, but you have to have that element of the nostalgia. And I feel like hers, they did it well, where it had that element of nostalgia. However, it still looked like it was, born from leather and whatnot on their very secluded island.
It looked good. An island full of hot, badass women. Sign me up. Where do we go? Second honeymoon. Let's go.
That's the only reason why their entourage stuck with them.
Yeah. No, correct. Where's this island full of women? We will stick with you till this war and then take us to the promised land. It's exactly what... That was their motivation. Fuck the war. Just get us laid. But now we're going to get to specific spoilers. So if you have not seen Wonder Woman, if you don't want to see, if you don't want to hear or know any spoilers, turn this video off. After you see it, come on back. Because we're going to get into specific story details of Wonder Woman. So I'm giving you some time. As Zeus makes his bed, I'm going to give you some time. Spoilers ahead. I warned you. So we're going to get to Chris Pine getting that ass, and he got him some of that Wonder Pussy. And they banged. So, sweetheart, my question to you is, when Wonder Woman have sex for the first time, is she on top or bottom?
What?
Yes. That's an important question about this movie. They didn't show it. Just Chris Pine went back into the room, started making out. In my mind, I have in my mind what happened. I can envision how they banged.
Well, okay, so I'm actually thinking way too far into this.
Spoilers, we're all into it.
That it probably started out normal missionary style, but then obviously gets rolled over into her kind of taking charge and a little bit more of the aggressive. Mainly because that's in her nature, and
she'd break his dick off.
And here's the thing about the whole theme of this movie was that it isn't just about what drives you as far as defeating Ares or winning the war. The general theme of this whole movie and what drives her to be a better person is love. So I feel like that scene may have tied that in.
So they made sweet love, not deep Amazon love.
I think they did both. But anyway.
So that was just the question I need to know. Who was on? He was on top. He made sweet love. She is too powerful. If she was on top, she would ride him and break his dick in half, and he would have to wait a few days to rest up before going back into battle.
No. I disagree. I think that she's learned to hone in on her strength ever since in that one battle scene where she finally realized that she has that power, and she almost severely injures her training
at the beginning.
Yes. So that is the first time that we actually do get a glimpse into her godlike origin, which we don't actually find out until the very, very end that she, in fact, is actually Zeus's daughter. Now, some may say that this is a spoiler. Some may say it's a twist and turn. However, well, I know we're on.
Oh, spoilers. Yeah, this is spoilers.
No, I know.
Oh.
But just, I'm not sure. I actually never read the Wonder Woman comics, so I didn't really know that much about her.
All my pages got sticky. I never made it to the middle. They were all stuck together.
I don't think this is something that you say to your wife. Anyway. So, moving on.
Isn't that what happens when you're married? There's no sex. It's just masturbation for the next 50 years.
Well, we've only been married like 3 weeks, so it might get better.
What might get better?
There might be hope for you.
There's always hope. Always hope. Brings me to the next day.
Anyway, back to what we were talking about.
Her powers and Ares.
The fact that she is Zeus's daughter, and that Ares is actually her long-lost brother. Now, her mother actually, when she leaves, gives some insight into that. She says that the more that she knows, the quicker that he'll find her. So they made this very real notion that Ares was actually alive on Earth. However, at that point I was thinking, okay, this is way too fantastical. They're spinning this as way too much of a fantasy. But the beauty of the wit of Chris Pine and his, I'm just going to call him his entourage, is they cut that nicely with, there's absolutely no way. Like, oh,
the above average Chris Pine.
Sweetheart, you're so cute.
Above average.
The above average. Like, sweetheart, you're so cute for believing this. Oh my gosh, this person is so naive. Oh my gosh, she's running into no man's land and has absolutely no idea what she's doing. But it tells the tale.
Takes on entire German line
she proves
on herself.
Time and time again that, realities that you may think to be realities are not necessarily so. And that might actually even be a greater theme as well. And
she started to lose belief. She killed the villain, who we thought
she believed was
the villain, who she thought was Ares, because that was the story, as in I kill Ares and the war's over.
The war stops.
That's the mythology. That's what's supposed to happen. She killed the villain at the end, and the war continues, and she started to lose belief of what she did believe in all her entire life, and now she thought it wasn't the truth.
Yeah.
And then found out there was a twist of who Ares actually
was.
Ares, yes. And I actually liked of how they did that. It wasn't actually Aries. She's the one who talked into their ears. She's the one who motivated them. Then he said it. What I didn't do anything. It was the humans who did it, even though he fed them that motivation.
But and time again, that has been the story that's been told through mythology, is that it's almost kind of an incestuous thing where you place an idea into someone's head and let them kind of just go with it.
So let's get into that last battle now. So it ended up being the last battle was Ares, the god of war. And I felt like I was playing a God of War game, Kratos, which is how that game ends. The last battle is with Ares. And just to me, with that battle with Ares, it just didn't match the look and feel of the entire movie. It looked really out of place.
Yeah.
But again, it's fantastical. I understand of why they did it. And it's two gods going up against each other. So again, it's going to be that fantastical setting. It's going to have that feel. I just think the special effects was not up to par in that. I think it was a little below average.
What did you feel about the about when he decided to like armor himself? I felt that was a little over the top.
It was. It's hard to explain. It's hard because just the entire setting of the first 2/3 of the movie was grounded, more realistic, but it wasn't two gods going up against each other. Right. I give it a compliment. Like, he had no idea, like, oh shit, she has some powers, I need to put on some armor, this fight's gonna get serious. So he put on the armor, but the look of it.
He knew that she did, though. So he told her, as he was destroying the elusive god killer, which was the sword that was so coveted by the Amazons, that was not actually the god killer, that she was. And that was a huge kind of turning point, as in, he obviously knows this, and it was almost like he was training her.
He was trying to convince her, because he said, when I first saw you, I could have just killed you.
Yeah.
But I led you the way, as in, now join me. Right. And he showed the line as in, these humans don't deserve this earth, let's make it the way it should be.
Right.
So he's trying to convince her to join me, you and I will rule this land, you and I.
Well, he was trying to convince her that all humans are bad and all humans are guided by the belief and the inception that he put in. The mythology is that Ares puts in to men selfish and very war-torn instincts and characteristics, and so that is what leads them to essentially implode their society and result in war and acts of the war to end all wars.
Just kind of weird what's happening during this time on Earth.
It is.
How you can relate it to what's going on now.
Well, these themes they're timeless. They're constantly going to be personal and humanistic struggles. But the great thing that Wonder Woman, or Diana, brings out of that is that when he is saying that all men are evil, it's that no, she has seen through saving that town after she enters no man's land and having them, dance and be jolly
and making self-sacrifice. And Chris Pine sacrifice himself at the end.
The whole evolution of her character is one where it takes her very black and white beliefs and ideologies from everything that she's been taught from her mother and the Amazons, and really kind of understands that human nature, and there is goodness in people. And definitely Chris Pine's self-sacrifice and the fact that she truly did fall in love with him, and that he even professes his love for her.
Well, women usually fall in love with the first person they bang. So.
Actually, the first man that they see. Especially if he's above average.
Above average, first one to stick it in, falls in love.
But all of these examples of kindness and humility and generosity and love are the examples of why not to go to war, why to actually live in a peaceful society, and why there is still hope for this race.
There's no hope. There's no
more.
hope.
I'm just kidding.
We'll find out in Justice League. There was no hope at all.
I am actually very excited for Justice League. However, it's not going to be as good as this one, I know. There's way too many origin stories. There's too much. DC's going to go back to what they do.
It looks like a clusterfuck again. I'm actually more excited for a Wonder Woman sequel than the Justice League.
For sure. As am I.
It wasn't overly done as trying to be too funny. Even though it was their first time in London during that time, that was funny, but wasn't always comedy parts. They knew when to get serious, know when to add some comedy. And I need Wonder Woman's 12 volumes of pleasure. I need to find that.
For sure.
Find that. And someday, the 12 volumes of pleasure. And I'm talking about sleeping and having intercourse.
So actually, the 12 volumes of pleasure end in women realizing that they don't need men for pleasure, but only for procreation, which, funny how that works.
Is that what you're using me for, is for us to procreate?
Even though I still say that we're going to hold off for about a year. Yeah. I don't know.
Procreation. That's all I'm here for. So let's get to it.
I think we should talk about the monogamy of our species and how that being a very antiquated idea.
What?
Next time.
Next time, yes.
Just kidding.
At the beginning, I did like their chemistry, and even on that boat, of him being respectful, didn't want to sleep next to her, which she didn't understand.
Yeah.
And the ideas of marriage as well, sticking with one. And even in London, trying to get outfitted in clothes in slavery. I actually like that line of the secretary. Being Chris Pine's secretary, what she does is like, in my world, that's called slavery.
Yeah, and I think she responds, yes, but unfortunately it pays well.
Yeah. Marriage does not pay very well.
Yeah, you want to talk about slavery? Let's talk about marriage.
Yes. That sounds like a great topic for another video. The slavery of marriage. How we're a slave for each other. Most important part, Chris Pine got some of that wonder pussy. It looked like it was glorious. And it was.
He fell in love with her.
He fell in, yeah. It just took one time. One entry, one penetration. Fell in love. But the end. Did you think he was going to live throughout the movie, or did you know his fate?
I'm actually glad that he did go out on self-sacrifice, because we saw already in Captain America where his love was very, very old. So when he finally was pulled from the ice, he realized that the love of his life was too little too late. Unfortunately, she was already on her deathbed, and they could never have the life that he once dreamed of and had dreamt of for however many years that he was in the ice.
Aww.
Like that's the more tragic tale there. I felt like it was much more fitting for especially her development of her character and this story in itself. And at the very end, she says, "Thanks for bringing him back to me." Because in the very beginning of the movie, we see the original image, the original portrait, where
after she was a badass in a village.
Yes, and we see that portrait actually taken after they save the village. But Bruce Wayne sends her the original that he found it, and she says, "Thank you for bringing him back to me," and just that memory, sticks in her mind, and that's enough to drive her belief, her courage, and
and that's why she stayed.
Endless hope for love, yeah, which is why she stayed.
And now she can get tag teamed by the Justice League. That will be fun. Get Cyborg. You got some machines, got some toys to play with. And that is our review of Wonder Woman. Overall, I give it a 8.5 out of 10. Would be my score for the movie. The first 2/3 are incredible. Then that last third act, a little out of place, but I still enjoyed it. Great way to end a superhero movie. Excellent origin movie. Really enjoyed it. 8.5 out of 10. What would your score be?
I would give it a solid 8. I'm a little bit more harsh, I think. But the fact that it is an origin story, the fact that it, I guess my favorite origin story would be the Guardians of the Galaxy original. That would be my favorite. So I won't go as far as to say that this one is mine. But
I said one of my favorite origin
okay.
movies.
But yeah, I will give it an 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10. That's still a great score.
Especially
for DC for setting the bar so low. The average probably is a 5 out of 10. It's fantastic for DC. Well, thank you for watching our first premiere episode of Pajamas Movie Review of Wonder Woman. We will see you next time for our next movie review.